CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. Say lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight of morals, so it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to ease their minds and pick a foreign people we could demonize. If you take a sec to sink into how war criminals think, you'll know you'd never want to see inside. If every man's an open book to look within, theirs are bound in human skin and not designed for human eyes. They are wearing human skin, but they can simply not be humanized. They aren't worth the lowest of the poor they swore to crucify. Holy sweet Geneva, there's a mass grave full of dead believers you called the police on cause you don't believe in squatters' rights. You believe the sanctity of human life is relative to human worth in terms of work and dollar signs. So listen when I say you need to find the light of day before it's too late to apologize. Like holy sweet Geneva, here's a mass grave you can colonize. Because you seem to love to talk about the spirit of America. But if you saw the spirit of this land's supposed character, I think that you'd be calling ICE. And I also think the actual America is truly represented by the call to ICE. Is represented best by the descendants of some immigrants bitching about the immigrants, snitching on some immigrants, then playing dumb and innocent like good little Christians when their neighbors get deported. Until they're screaming at the store that they waited 20 minutes more because the staff was short. Because some ordinary bigot started waging war on immigrants. And honey, we'll just keep deporting because like your first vote and each election since, it turned out that the man you are supporting ended up to just be twice the fucking bigot as the bigot that he wins against. But I was not among the herd. A single word from Biden stirred a tingle in the cynic sense. I knew that a vote for Joe was more like Reagan 2.0. I could smell that sarin smoke that choked around the river bend, and so I spoke about a living end, about an anchor thrown to drowning men, a democratic president, a country never found again. A man who marinated in the blood this land was founded in. A crime bill that contains sufficient lethal ends to drown us in. All written by a man who wears a crown of sins, who currently is sleeping in a bed of sins. And it's no wonder those who truly understand the meaning of democracy are not too keen to let us in. It's no wonder other countries can't conceive of skipping meals or missing rent or being on the streets because you can't afford your medicine. That's uniquely American. And Joe has proved to be the most disturbingly American of presidents. I shiver when I think of what's to come if he's the precedent. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all and just how I remembered it. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all, and just how I remembered it.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Fuck.
don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there. It can analyze your speech, and if it hears disinformation, then it notifies police. It's a swift re-education, but it knocks you off your feet like your booster every 7th week. I faced the future boldly with 2 eager open eyes, and I picked a couple nuggets up that blew my fucking mind. Like you can taxidermy someone while they're technically alive, and they'll shine when it's election time. See, the Democratic voter base will pay them zero. Never mind if voting for the scarecrow is a vote along their party lines. They could stare into its marble eyes and claim there's something dignified. Unlike real politicians, this one doesn't need an oxygen or kit supply. But its function is the same as those who came before. The goals are never misaligned. It still spends all its working time performing pre-recorded fleecing sessions where it sugarcoats your slow and hungry genocide, while pouring billions into Nazi coffers, all the while selling you the story that we're moments till the MiGs arrive. So fuck it, ask Zelensky if he'll help replace our leaded pipes. Watch a fleet of Penske's show, stacks of bills in every size. Guess it only took a black sun and a couple Hiles. Honorary goose step and some Nazi boots a quarter mile, all while Biden sneers his sordid smile. I don't know what was in this morning's vial, but it makes him stare 1,000 yards through all the prompters and the cards like he can smell the nearest child. His eyes are wide and wild, wider than the grave in which another 1,000 families were tossed in as I typed until they rose up to the sky unceremoniously piled. Which sort of flies right in the face of all this network ticker tape where the American economy has superhuman vitals.
And sometimes some people come along with a hammer.
See, I like to think my trial's gonna play like a recital. I'll denounce the world around me and accuse the most entitled, who weaponize their titles, whose pull is something title, who'd starve us all to death to best delight their blinded idol. So they might destroy the record, and I will never get to vinyl. So my word is not immortal, but it's final.
It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Who are these people? And who are these people? Oh, look at this guy. He's going to act like he's actually talking because he's screwing with us and he can't stop laughing because... What's up, everyone? It's Indy and Reef. It's live tonight. How do we miss that? Thank you, Fred Edward, for that. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
What's going on? It's INN. That's going to be later. That's when we go to Uncensored Boats, and we'll have a little pre-show music that we can use that we can't use anywhere else. Harps, good day, pendejos. Hey, pendejo, dude.
Right there.
That makes me remember that reminds me. Oh boy, that reminds me of the Cheech and Chong skit where they're in the car and Cheech teaches Chong a new word, and it's pendejos, and then he tells them that it's my really good friend, and they run into a whole family, and Chong looks out the window, and goes, "Hey, pendejos!" Dude, and they all get angry and they want to fight. Oh, yeah, it's amazing. What's going on, Angel? Good to see you, bro. Steve Gill, how are you, man? Now, Hamaste. I'm not going to put your other one up there because I don't want to get our stream taken down. I mean, some people are... Oh, is that where you got it from? That's funny. Pendejos! Nice. Awesome. Oh, we are living in hell. We're going to continue to talk about how we're living in hell. We got people over on Substack. We're live everywhere. And yeah, we're doing the thing like we do every Sunday night at 10. And then afterwards tonight, no YouTube for boats. So when we're done here watching all this horrible shit, flip over to Rumble on INN 8 the Ocho. The stream's already made. It's already there.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Yeah, that. And then it'll also be over on Kick, and it'll be over on Twitch and Twitter and all the other places we go live, like IndieNewsNow.com, and it'll be live at INNNewsletter.com later also. So go check out Boats Smashing into Other... Boats Smashing into Otherboats.com. No, not .com. I need to buy that as a URL because I'm just URL happy.
Don't make him buy more URLs. He's already got like 30.
He yells at me all the time about URLs. But yes, Twitter at Get Indie News. We're over there live, so you can check us out over there. You can follow. All the links are down in the bottom in the scrolling ticker, as well as in the description.
Twitter.
On almost all the platforms where you are. There is no description over on Substack, unfortunately. So you've got to go to youtube.com/Indie News Network, INDIE News Network. And you can find us over on YouTube. That's where a lot of the people that are chatting over are. So tonight we're going to, I have not heard a lot of people talking about Julian Assange. It's been a year.
Why?
Well, we can examine why, but Stefania Marizzi, I believe, I don't know if she sat down with him, but she decided to do like an analysis and a recap 1 year since.
You got to turn the stream on for me again.
Oh, son of a... That's right, I do.
All right.
I was right. I had it done. Okay. I messed up the...
You had it.
I had it.
You forgot to plug in your mic.
And then, yeah. And then I had to disconnect. Oh, Dr. Nick is in the house on Discord. That's right. Golden Monarch is here. Everybody go follow goldenmonarchdomain.substack.com. He's been publishing some kick-ass stuff, and go follow him over on the Twitters as well. But we haven't talked about Julian Assange much lately. There's reasons for that. We'll get into it.
Why?
I've got a long Fuck Israel segment this week with a bunch of receipts. It's not good. And then FEMA going broke under Trump. And then there's one that I want to talk about that nobody's really talking about yet, and that's about the machines and about the voting machines that nobody had. Everybody kind of forgot about electoral integrity because our elections are rigged, right? Well, let's talk about how they're rigged, right? So we're going to get into a company that runs the machines. Also wanted to talk about, I've got a lightning round that has a few things, including the whole thing about July 4th. And I'm a little concerned about what's going on with July 4th. No, Dr. Nick, we're not going to talk about what you want to talk about with that either, because there is no evidence to that except for your circumstantial stuff. So once you have it and you publish something, we can certainly talk about it. But till then, no, we got a whole lineup of shit that I got set up for tonight. But appreciate that, and that's really cool. But all right, before we do, support the media you want to see. Hey, look at that. That looks a little different this week. I had to move some stuff around because we got a couple of new annual subscribers to IndieMediaToday.com. So thank you so much for that. We also had a new super chatter at Kieran Pine, who donated over on the PayPal. Thank you so much for that. So we had to put Kieran on the board. Anyone who goes up there goes on the board. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate everybody who's on that board, really. And if you want to join that board, you go to, you can do it a bunch of ways. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. You go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. That's ko-fi.com. Because actually, on the transcript, it sounds funny when I look it up. So I have to correct the transcript. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com is our self-hosted website where we're actually live right now. And then INNNewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com. Those are the Substacks where you can also support with a monthly
Substack newsletter near you
or annual donation and contribution in order to, again, fund the media that you want to see, because we are totally user-funded. We rely solely on you. All right. So my first thing is I wanted to start with
WikiLeaks, the Julian Assanges.
Yeah, that guy. But, oh, you know what? Rookie move again. Hold on a second. My bookmarks ended up coming back. I went to turn those off. There they go. Now it'll be even cleaner. All right, let's go back to that. The WikiLeaks. So, Indie Media Award honoree Stefania Marizzi on Monday, June 24th. I think it was Monday, right? Pretty sure it was Monday. Might have been Tuesday. A historic day. All right, but 2024. A year later, Stefania publishes this article. After 14 years, I met Julian Assange as a free man. Hardship has not made him hard. He's still a victim of state secrecy. In this article for Computer Weekly, I explain to you why. And the only other person I know of that talked about this article at all on her show was Misty Winston. Hey, what is this nonsense? Really? Okay. Really? I shouldn't have to do that.
You probably don't need that.
No.
Look at it in reader mode.
I think you kind
Look at the top. There's a little reader mode thing to be.
I don't think they have that here. Come on, man. All right, hold on a second. Let me sign in and create a fucking thing, because they're a bunch of jerk-offs at this website. Thank you. Thanks for nothing. Like, really? I agree. Detect target. Really? I mean, come on. Oh, come on. Please provide a corporate email address. Meaning not a Gmail. Like, really? You fucking jerk-offs? And then, oh, you're going to have to click this link. Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, put in all your names.
No. Okay, you know what? I'm about to chuck this story because I'm not playing this game, Stefania. You want to send me the article? I'll read it, but I'm not doing this. I'm not filling out a form. Okay, now we've
Press X. Press X.
I got it. I got it.
So it doesn't load.
I got it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. If it comes back, you owe me $5.
I don't care if it comes back. All right. So, as Stefania finally writes, and I can get to that. Again, this is Indie Media Award honoree Stefania Marizzi writing for ComputerWeekly.com. And screw you, Computer Weekly, for making me have to register to read this. 1 year since being free, Julian Assange is still a victim of state secrecy. She says that if the State Department's arguments prevail in FOIA litigation, the truth about U.S. action against Julian Assange and WikiLeaks journalists will never be known, which is what the U.S. government planned on all along. So she says it's 1 year since WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange became a free man again. When he addressed the Council of Europe last October, which, by the way, we live streamed on INN. Not very many channels that I know of actually picked that up live, but we tapped into the feed and we co-streamed that because I wanted to hear what the hell he had to say. He was unable to speak about the years he'd spent incarcerated in the UK, facing allegations of Espionage Act violations and computer intrusion. He says, quote, "I'm not yet fully equipped to speak about what I have endured, the relentless struggle to stay alive, both physically and mentally. Nor can I speak yet about the deaths by hanging, murder, and medical neglect of my fellow prisoners." She said when she had heard those words, for a moment, her mind went back to the ordeal that Assange had gone through since 2010, when he and WikiLeaks began publishing secret U.S. documents. The arbitrary detention he endured for almost a decade, the smear campaign against him and WikiLeaks, CIA plans to kidnap or kill him, revealed by protected witnesses, the Espionage Act charges, the risk of spending his life entombed in a U.S. supermax prison, the 5 years and 2 months spent in Britain's toughest prison, Belmarsh, and the grave decline in his health. In May 2019, 52-year-old Assange was publicly charged by the United States Department of Justice with 17 counts under the U.S. Espionage Act of 1917 and 1 count under the U.S. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act over WikiLeaks' 2010 publication of documents leaked by U.S. Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning.
Yep.
She says there's a FOIA battle that reveals that the authorities destroyed key documents, which we know of in the UK. As an investigative journalist and partner of WikiLeaks, media partner, who published the same secret U.S. documents but did not go through a similar ordeal, Stefania has always felt it her duty to investigate the legal and extra-legal tactics used by Assange and the WikiLeaks journalists. It was this desire to unearth the truth that convinced me to embark on a 10-year FOIA battle in the U.S., Britain, Sweden, and Australia, represented by such excellent lawyers as British barrister Estelle Dehaan of Casey Cornerstone Barristers and American lawyers Lauren Russell and Aaliyah Smith of Ballard Spahr. Okay. Thanks to this trench warfare to unearth the truth, it has been possible to reveal the role of the British authorities, including the Crown Prosecution Service, in creating the legal paralysis that kept Assange arbitrarily detained in London and that they destroyed key documents on the case. Again, we covered it when she published that and received those FOIA documents. This process has also brought to light that the Swedish authorities destroyed thousands of key documents, and finally that the U.S. authorities had planned to detain the WikiLeaks founder at the U.S. border in July 2010, before WikiLeaks had even revealed the secret reports on the war in Afghanistan.
WikiLeaks.
That was at some conference. They planned to grab him when he flew to New York for a conference, but either he got wind of it or he just decided not to go, and he never went, so they never grabbed him. But there was an entire plan. Again, we covered that on this show too. Hey, how about that?
Mm-hmm.
So she says that he is still the same person with the same with humor intact, which is remarkable. She says when Assange was finally free and gave testimony before the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe in Strasbourg last October, 14 years had passed since I had last met him as a free man on September 28, 2010. From that time, we had always met in confined places, either when he was under house arrest or when he was at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where we met repeatedly until 5 months before his arrest, where she undoubtedly was spied upon by UC Global, who was doing that on behalf of Adelson, and CIA. When Assange was freed, and when WikiLeaks informed me that we could finally meet, as I stepped out of the building after our meeting, I could scarcely believe that there were no walls preventing him from doing the same. Each time we had met previously, I had thought about how painful it was for him to remain confined between four walls, day after day, year after year, with no end in sight. But this time he could go out, walk freely, enjoy the sun, and spend time with his family and friends. I just couldn't believe it. At the same time, I had one serious concern. Would he be the same person I had known before? I mean, how could he be? When we met, he was brilliant, relaxed, and had not lost his sense of humor. The hardship he had gone through had not made him hard. We didn't discuss any of his future plans. He enjoys nature, his wife Stella, and their 2 sons. Should he decide to spend the rest of his life swimming in the ocean and walking in the woods, who could question that choice? He's already given so much and sacrificed so many years of his life. Assange and the WikiLeaks journalists fought a battle against state secrecy. Secrecy that is used not to protect the safety and security of citizens, but is abused to cover up state criminality, and won. They opened a deep and enduring crack in malign state secrecy. It's paradoxical that the man who won the battle against state secrecy may himself become a victim of state secrecy. Assange's plea deal does not allow him even to file a Freedom of Information Act request to acquire information on his persecution. Interesting. In addition, as our FOIA litigation revealed, thousands of key documents on this case were destroyed by British and Swedish authorities, which all, by the way, is a crime. Yep. And now the U.S. authorities by the State Department are trying to keep key documentation classified and stop the release of unclassified files. Wait. Okay, that's insane. The department is opposing the release of documents on the investigation into WikiLeaks, on Assange's travels, and even on foreign government perceptions and reactions to WikiLeaks disclosures, arguing that their release could reasonably be expected to cause serious damage to national security. Can it all? If the State Department's arguments prevail in the U.S. FOIA litigation, which I fully expect it will, the truth about the persecution of Assange and the WikiLeaks journalists will never see the light of day. Again, the intent here is, all right, fine, we let him out, but you're not getting all the answers that you want. You got him out. And is that going to be enough? You know, it's funny. On American Tradition Clip Show the other night, I ran a 1-year kind of retrospective. We did a show called Julian's Free, and it had a list of songs that mentioned him or were about press freedom. And at the end, I stuck on 2 new Jesse pieces that he has done in the last year since Julian's gotten out. And one of them is called The Win, which is about is that all we get before we go, effectively? Like, what did we expect was going to happen? Like, were they going to just be like, yep, our bad, like completely fess up to every single thing that we ever accused them of, and then just walk into prison themselves? No, I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what what you would expect, but oh, look at that! Hey, welcome, Dissented Bloom. Cool. Yeah, we're gonna get to your articles later on, but kick ass. Thank you, really appreciate you coming by and showing support. But yeah, we're gonna get to your articles about election integrity and about who runs the voting machines, because they are phenomenal. And if you're over on Substack, give dissentedbloom.substack.com a follow and a subscribe for sure. So that's our first story tonight. Again, we don't get monetized for talking about Julian Assange for sure. So if you're able to, and it means, please support independent media with a monthly one-time contribution. The best ways to do that are over at Cash App. There's no fees over there. $sign Indie News Network. ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. That's where you can, it'll actually show up something on screen. It'll pop up and go, woo! And then paypal.me/Indie News Network. That works there too. Over at the Substacks, INNnewsletter.com, IndieMediaToday.com. Those are the two places over at Substack. And then our self-hosted site at IndieNewsNow.com. There's a Stripe plug in there so you can support with a one-time or monthly contribution. Really appreciate everybody doing that. All right. So that was our Julian Assange segment. Again, there's a lot of things that I can say more about Julian and about this. I kind of want to be that to be more of like a happier, kind of looser segment. At some point, I will get into all of the questions that I have and the beefs that I have with the way that that's all been handled and the limited access that we've had and the fact that he's always seems to be surrounded by a handler and a whole lot more. But again, for tonight, it's been a year. We're thrilled that he's been out. Look, this is what we fought for from the minute I started in independent media, basically, was fighting for Julian Assange to be out of prison. Now, I also wanted Julian Assange to be able to be out of prison and speak freely and kind of go back to doing what he was doing before, but that might not have been a realistic expectation. It might not have even been fair of me to think or want or whatever you want to call it. Look, he's a free man. He can do whatever the hell he wants at this point. And he owes nobody anything, really. I would hope that at some point there will be a sit down where it's like an AMA type of thing where they'll take questions from an audience. But everything has been so gatekept around him for so long. It'll be interesting to see if and when that actually does happen. But, all right. So this is going to be our somewhat long fuck Israel. Oh, Talking Wombat, dude, over on Substack. Good to see. Did he say beefs? I don't know. Did I say beefs? I have several beefs. Yes, I do. I have a lot of beefs. Sure. And we have grievances too, but we're not going to air them all tonight. There's plenty of time for that. Tonight, we're going to again talk about some of the shit that Israel's been up to. And it's not good. Not good. Not good at all. So this is our brother, Go Start. I think he's over here in chat, and he might even be over on Rumble also at the Namaste over there. All right, good to see you, brother. He put this up, Politics Trending, from the other day. Actually, it was from last Monday, the 23rd. Israeli forces have killed Ismail Abu Nadi, a volunteer with the Rawabi Charitable Foundation, along with several members of his family after targeting their home in northern Gaza. I didn't even know there were homes in northern Gaza at this point, but I'm guessing it was a tent, and they saw him feeding them and were like, yeah, that can't happen. May he rest in power. That's awful. Fuck Israel for that. Like, why? Because he's feeding people.
Fuck you.
Next one. Oh boy. Zay Squirrel. Shout out to Zay Squirrel. I'm actually a mod at the Zay Squirrel over on Discord. At Zay_Squirrel over on Twitter. The Mossad called Iranian generals and threatened to kill their wife and children if they did not record video messages saying that they oppose the Iranian government and want to overthrow it. They planned to release those videos when they launched their war to cause state collapse. None of the generals they threatened made the video and instead stood by their nation and people. And as Zay Squirrel says, genocidal Zionists are the most depraved, subhuman scum alive, and everything they do must be done to them 1,000-fold. Call all their generals and military commanders and tell them Record a video saying you'll leave the colony you've occupied within 12 hours, or you and your wife and children and entire bloodline will be wiped off the face of the earth. See how that feels.
He has a wife, you know.
This is not merely a hollow threat from Mossad. They actually mass kill scientists and generals, along with their children and wives and other babies and children and civilians who just happen to live or be next to them. Then they cry, OMG terrorism! They go after women and children, OMG terrorism! The worst actual terrorists alive are genocidal Zionists. They introduced terrorism into the region and spread it everywhere like the cancer they are, both directly themselves and via their proxies like ISIS. Yes, ISIS. As Norm...
ISIS agents use Krav Maga. We've got an ex-Mossad guy. He comes in on Thursday.
Yep. As Noam Chomsky famously said, quote, "It's a great error to describe terrorism as the weapon of the weak. It's a weapon of the strong and always has been. If they do it, it's terrorism. When we do it, it's counter-terrorism." Now you can find that in Guess What archives too. I did not see that coming.
Terrorism. Terror.
All right. There's a lot more here, but that is just despicable and disgraceful. Can you imagine calling somebody that you consider to be your enemy the generals of that? First of all, they assassinated like 4 generals on the day that they illegally attacked a sovereign country that did not attack them. Now they're calling the other ones that are left and threatening them and their wives and their families. Nice. And they're supposedly the civil ones, right?
This is indeed a disturbing universe.
So, not only that, but their murder of journalists continues. In the last week, Zionism Observer, receipts_LOL. We at Databases for PAL maintain a database of journalists murdered by Israel at stopmurderingjournalists.com. Good URL. Ahmad Saad is the 4th journalist murdered by Israel this week. For comparison, over the past 10 years, Iran and China combined murdered 1 journalist. 1. So fuck Israel for murdering journalists, because you only murder journalists. Here's another one here. Ahmad Saad, martyred after an airstrike targeted a group of civilians in the Al-Tufa neighborhood in eastern Gaza City. And was it that device in his hand that got them targeted? I hope not. Next. Guy Christensen, also the heroic Palestinian journalists who Israel martyred in Gaza, shall be remembered in their own museum one day. Agreed. And we talked about that with Jonathan Cook having an incredibly powerful video that we showed here on the show a while back. Speaking of Jonathan Cook, he's laying out, and the last article we brought from him was literally like the Israeli playbook. Indie Media Award honoree. Yes, and Jeremy over there, fuck Israel, agreed over on Substack as well. Here's the genocide by starvation timeline. First, Israel stops UN aid from reaching Gaza, claiming that the world body lets Hamas steal aid. Meanwhile, back in the Hall of Injustice, Netanyahu admits that Israel has been arming criminal gangs in Gaza. Those gangs use their guns to loot aid trucks and run a food extortion racket. I wonder how that happened. Israel then releases drone video showing a truck being looted, but claims that the gang it armed is actually Hamas. The people of Gaza are now left to starve for months on end.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom,
there too. Eventually, Israel responds to growing pressure by setting up 4 aid hubs run by armed mercenaries. That's called the Gaza Health Foundation, claiming that they'll distribute food instead. The hubs, of course, are located specifically to lure Palestinians away from northern Gaza to the southern border so Israel can more easily drive them into Egypt. Each day for weeks.
Which they're already using that for Squid Game's murder bullshit.
Well, see, that's what he's about to say. You know? Each day for weeks, Israel shoots into the crowds of starving Palestinians trying to reach these hubs, killing dozens each time. Hardly anyone manages to get some of the trickle of aid. Now Netanyahu halts even these paltry supplies into northern Gaza based on a video showing armed gangs stealing aid. Once again, the claim is that these criminals armed by Israel are Hamas. So Israel is arming Hamas? Rinse and repeat. Our politicians and media say nothing. Israel can keep doing this until every last Palestinian is dead, because nobody's stopping them.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
All right, and here is from Haaretz. Netanyahu halts North Gaza aid after Smotrich threatens to quit the coalition over alleged Hamas access.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking
that was
disgusting.
When? Did you have a date on that?
The 26th. That was like 3 days ago. 4 days ago.
On that Haaretz article?
I don't see a date on that. It looks like it was... no, it's clipped. It's clipped out.
Okay. No worries.
I don't see Jonathan doing that. You know, like...
Yeah.
Although, again, rinse and repeat. This could be from 4 months ago or 6 months ago or 5 years ago. I mean, they've been doing this.
Yeah, I remember the Smotrich stuff. I think it was a while ago. But
I think he's back.
Same.
Pretty sure he's back.
Okay.
So, I also want to give a shout out to fucking Miss Rachel, man. Miss Rachel's a G. All right. Hashtag let aid into Gaza. As she reminds people with her massive platform and gets 3.1 million views. All right. There are trucks with enough food to feed 1 million people for 4 months, a few miles away from starving children. Cruelty. But that's not the only Miss Rachel tweet. There was another one, again on Tuesday. Please like and share this post if you want the children of Gaza to have the food they need and not starve anymore. Please like and share this post if you want the children to have the medicine they need and not suffer anymore. Please like and share this post if you want the children to be protected from violence and not be killed anymore. Please like and share this post if you want UN humanitarian aid to be allowed in and for us to end this unconscionable, horrific treatment of children. Said I'm with Team Miss Rachel on this one. And by the way, of course, I did like and share this post because that's what you need to do. At minimum. That's bare minimum shit right there. So I'm with Team Miss Rachel. And Asal Rod was also, you know, like giving her props for using her platform. And it's not just Miss Rachel, but she's been really outspoken and the Zionists have really gone after her hard about it and like tried to get her canceled, and it's only made her stronger. Now, I've seen this posted a bunch of times lately, so this is really starting to make the rounds, but this is not a publication I normally put up. The America First post, not normally one that I refer to, but again, been verified a bunch. Gaza officials say that they found crushed opioid pills inside the U.S.-Israel aid flour, calling it a potentially deliberate attack on public health.
I saw, I forget who it was, but they said that their like sister had gotten like sugar from the market and then started having hallucinations. Like,
well,
they're like literally drugging the food that makes it in.
Well, that's what they were saying. It's not just about that. It's about who knows what else they're putting in the food. I think I even
what
have
else
that
is in
too.
there, right?
So I have a video from
Your
Guy.
existence is a mockery of morality.
Guy Christensen. We've talked
Today we
about him
learned that
before.
Israel is putting oxycodone into the flour bags they're delivering as aid to the Palestinians in Gaza. Through the organization Israel set up to control the flow of supplies to the people they're starving, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, these pills are opioids. They cause severe addiction. They're harming the Palestinians in a dirty war on top of this genocide. Multiple testimonies have come forward already with doctors confirming what's being reported. The GHF is led by Trump's former faith advisor, who's also a top guy with the ADL. That's right, the Anti-Defamation League, which is combating anti-Semitism, is directly involved in Israel's final solution on Gaza,
The Anti-Defecation
which this
League.
aid distribution plan is part of, with Israel slaughtering hundreds of Palestinians, risking their lives to go through red zones to reach these aid compounds, which are biometric camps, scanning Palestinians' identities and tracking them so Israel can target them at a later date. What we also learned today is that this massacre of innocent civilians coming to the GHF compounds and getting slaughtered by Israeli soldiers is deliberate. They were outright instructed to do this in what's called Operation Salted Fish. Multiple soldiers came forward anonymously to the Israeli media outlet Haaretz. This is a reminder to me and all of us that however bad you think the genocide is, however gruesome, it is 100 times worse. You just haven't heard about it yet. There's a lot to unpack here, and of course I'm going to make some videos tomorrow and the next day unpacking these individual Operation Salted Fish and the GHF and how the ADL is connected to this final solution on Gaza, Operation Gideon's Chariots. But as for now, free Palestine forever and always within our lifetimes. You can support my work in my bio. Thank you.
This dude also, by the way, urged people to skip a meal and give the money that you would have spent on a meal to a Palestinian cause. And this kid, man, he's something. I got to tell you, he's doing it, and I give him a lot of props. Again, being attacked mercilessly by the Zionist, coalition, the media arm.
Who are these people?
That they
Who
have.
are these people?
Thank you to whoever that was.
Hey, Margaret
appreciate
Villa,
that.
thanks for always speaking on Palestine. Free Palestine until it's backwards. And fuck ICE. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, sweetheart. Love it.
Like
Thank
getting
you.
some
Thank you,
donuts.
Margaret. Appreciate that. Fuck ice. Absolutely. And again, not the one that goes in your drink, but the ones that are deporting. Now it's Haitians, apparently, this week. Apparently, the 500,000 Haitians. Holy crap. So, I'm sorry to do this.
Terrible.
Dave DeCamp, another Indie Media Award honoree, put up this video from Hawidi Hamza. All right, just 50 seconds from one of Gaza's aid lines. You don't need commentary. Just watch how people move, watch how they run, and watch how they try to stay alive while waiting for food. Oh, man. All right, let's do it. I guess that's music is there.
Yeah. And this is, if you move, they shoot you.
I mean,
and this is what starving humans are willing to put up with for a measly amount of food.
I don't even know how to describe what I just
There's
looked at.
zero fucking words. Ugh.
Yep. So I wanted to bring that. Shout out to our friend the Dissident, the 307.substack.com. He's been on a tear. He's been publishing about 5 articles a week. And I'll tell you, he publishes the link to a bunch of different chats on Substack, public chats. And the people at Matt Taibbi's Racket News chat, you have to be a founding member. So you have to pay like $250 or whatever it is a year, which he pays to be able to post there. Not many people do. And therefore, he dominates that thread. And man, does he fucking tweak the Zionists Every time he puts a link in there, how do I unsubscribe from this guy? How do I block this guy from my feed? I don't want to see his articles. Oh, man, do they cry. Because he's bringing receipts like this. This is an article, again, out of Haaretz about how Israel is deliberately killing civilians at aid sites. So what we just witnessed, here's more about it. And again, this is out of an Israeli paper, Haaretz, which means the trees. All right. I believe. Maybe it's the land. But Israel's top newspaper reported that the IDF deliberately killed civilians at aid sites. Yeah, no surprise. By far, the most barbaric atrocity in recent memory has been Israel's massacring of Palestinians, intentionally starved through the Israeli blockade on Gaza through the setup of fake food aid sites. Israel and the U.S. set up the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, a fake humanitarian aid organization to lure Palestinians toward the south of Gaza to further Israel's stated goal of ethnic cleansing. As the Israeli scholar Yaakov Garb noted, quote, these foundation compounds do not bring food to needy populations, but rather entice, under conditions of severe duress, some portions of these populations into remote and highly militarized settings. It's the concentration camps. He pointed out that the majority of these remote and highly militarized settings, i.e. concentration camps, were located in the south of Gaza, exactly where the IDF plans to force Palestinians in Gaza for their ethnic cleansing plan. As he wrote, quote, the fact that 4 of the 5 compounds lie south of the Morag corridor, repeatedly indicated by Israeli officials as the intended destination for concentration of Palestinians to be displaced from the remainder of Gaza in an impending intensification of the military attacks, is not reassuring. Yeah, I would say so. The reality is even more depraved. Not only has Israel used the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to lure Palestinians into concentration camps, but they've also used it to open fire on starving Palestinian civilians once they reach the aid centers, which we just showed. Palestinians have taken to calling the aid sites death traps due to the daily IDF massacres that have been occurring against civilians once they reach the sites. As the independent outlet Mondo Weiss, another Indie Media Award honoree, wrote, incidents that have taken place at the GHF aid distribution points in southern and central Gaza on a near daily basis, they have taken on a familiar pattern in which thousands of starving civilians march in the pre-dawn hours toward the distribution points and upon arrival are shot by Israeli forces, leading to another aid massacre. The outlet noted that these near-daily aid massacres have led Palestinians again to regard the aid sites run by a U.S. organization as massacre sites and death traps, because they are. The Israeli magazine 972 similarly reported something along the same lines. Starving civilians gather in massive crowds waiting for permission to approach. In many instances, Israeli troops have opened fire on the masses, and even during distribution itself, killing dozens as they try to collect a few kilos of flour or canned goods to bring home in what Palestinians have dubbed the Hunger Games, the literal Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Haaretz, again, one of Israel's top newspapers, has reported that the order to intentionally fire on innocent civilians at aid sites has come from the top. In a new report titled, quote, IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. Although they are not Gazans, they are Palestinians who are pushed into Gaza. Israel's been trying to change this narrative and name these people Gazans as if that were a thing. These were the people that are survivors from the original Palestine. Don't give them another name. They already have a description. It's called Palestinian. The paper reported that Israeli soldiers in Gaza told Haaretz that the army has deliberately fired at Palestinians near aid distribution sites over the past month. We've known that. The outlet found that conversations with officers and soldiers revealed that commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds to drive them away or disperse them, even though it was clear they posed no threat. It noted that 549 people have been killed near aid centers and in areas where residents were waiting for UN food trucks since May 27th, and over 4,000 have been wounded. And of course, remember, the entire hospital and healthcare system within Gaza has basically been destroyed by Israel to begin with. So not many people to treat the 4,000 wounded. One IDF soldier told the paper, quote, "It's a killing field. Where I was stationed, between 1 and 5 people were killed every day. They're treated like a hostile force. No crowd control measures, no tear gas, just live fire with everything imaginable. Heavy machine guns, grenade launchers, mortars. Then, once the center opens, the shooting stops and they know they can approach. Our form of communication is gunfire." These motherfuckers. Like, and how are they never going to go to prison for this?
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
The soldier admitted that in all of these instances, the desperate, starving civilians posed no military threat, saying, quote, "We open fire early in the morning if someone tries to get in line from a few hundred meters away, and sometimes we just charge at them from close range. There's no danger to the forces. I'm not aware of a single instance of return fire. There's no enemy, no weapon." So why do they have all these weapons then? The paper reported that the IDF disgustingly compared the policy of shooting at starving civilians to prevent them from obtaining food aid to red light, green light. The kids' game.
Jesus Christ! This is what I was talking about. This is literally Squid Games. This is literally a bit in Squid Games. Fucking stupid.
All right.
Stupid.
But he's writing, quote, "He also said the activity in his area of service is referred to as Operation Salted Fish, the name of the Israeli version of the children's game Red Light, Green Light, like Guy was just talking about." The paper reported that the civilian massacres have been ordered by Brigadier General Yehuda Vach, writing, quote, "And well, welcome to The Hague, General Vach, a senior officer whose name repeatedly comes up in testimonies about the shootings near aid sites is Brigadier General Yehuda Vach, who is commander of IDS Division 252. Now, an officer in the division says Vach decided to disperse gatherings of Palestinians waiting for UN aid trucks by opening fire. This is his policy, they said. But many of the commanders and soldiers accepted it without question. Well, the Palestinians aren't supposed to be there, so the idea is to make sure they clear out, even if they're just there for food.
Right.
The official excuse from the IDF is that these massacres are done to disperse crowds. But an IDF soldier admitted they've fired on civilians who pose no threat and who've already begun to flee the gunfire. They're shooting them in the backs and not being fired upon. So it's literally just like shooting fish in a barrel. He was quoted in the paper saying, quote, "The teenagers waiting for the trucks hide behind dirt mounds and rush them as they pass or stop at distribution points. We usually see them from hundreds of meters away. It's not a situation where they pose a threat to us." He went on to say, technically, it's supposed to be warning fire, either to push people back or to stop them from advancing. But lately, firing shells has just become standard practice. Every time we fire, there are casualties and deaths. And when someone asks why a shell is necessary, there's never a good answer other than, "Shut the fuck up, you pussy." That's what they're saying to each other. This is the testosterone thing.
Jesus Christ.
Sometimes merely asking the question annoys the commanders. Like, how dare you? How dare you stop my genocide?
Fuck you.
The paper went on to note that, quote, "In that case, Some people began to flee after the shell was fired, and according to the soldier, other forces subsequently opened fire on them. Of course, they give them no chance. The soldier then went on to say that, quote, if it's meant to be a warning shot and we still see them running back to Gaza, why shoot at them? Sometimes we're told they're still hiding and we need to fire in their direction because they haven't left. But it's obvious they can't leave if the moment they get up and run, we open fire. The paper noted that the soldier said this has become routine. Another IDF reserve officer admitted that they fired on civilians at aid sites who were not close to forces for no military reason and said that killing innocent people was normalized. Are you fucking kidding me? He was quoted as saying, when we asked why they opened fire, we were told it was an order from above and that the civilians had posed a threat to the troops. I can say with certainty that the people were not close to the forces and did not endanger them. It was pointless. They were just killed for nothing. This thing called killing innocent people, it's been normalized. We were constantly told there are no non-combatants in Gaza, and apparently that message sank in among the troops, including babies.
How far up above does that order come from them?
Right from... Right from... Come on, right from Netanyahu.
Fucking God told them, bro. Fucking... They just... A burning bush whispered it to them.
Another field officer acknowledged these massacres of civilians was due to genocidal IDF ideology, which believes, again, that there are no innocent civilians in Gaza, saying, my greatest fear is that the shooting and harm to civilians in Gaza aren't the result of operational necessity or poor judgment, but rather the product of an ideology held by field commanders, which they pass down to the troops as an operational plan. Yeah. Of course. Yes. Naturally, I can't believe that's even a question. The paper also noted that Yasser Abu Shabab, the leader of a small ISIS-linked criminal gang, which again is armed by Israel and has repeatedly looted aid with support from the IDF, has taken part in these massacres too. For context, again, as he reported recently, Yasser Abu Shabab's gang has put out videos of looted aid in concentration camps in eastern Rafah in order to lure desperate Palestinians into the south of Gaza, close to the border with Egypt. Haaretz reported. Yep. How about no? Haaretz reported that Yasser Abu Shabab's gang has taken part in aid massacres at these sites with support from the IDF, writing, quote, in addition to the IDF fire, military sources say some of the fatalities near the aid distribution centers were caused by gunfire from militias that the army supports and arms. According to one officer, the IOF continues to back the Abu Shabab group and other factions. Well, why wouldn't they? It's serving their narrative. Yep. There are many groups that oppose Hamas. Abu Shabab went several steps further. They control territory that Hamas doesn't enter, and the IDF encourages that. Okay. Exchange one set of manufactured terrorists for another, because remember that the IDF and that Israel was allowing aid and money to go into Hamas for years. So now they're paying two sides to fight each other. Another article in Haaretz.
If you go back and look through that may not be as accurate. Inlakesh has an incredible set of articles going through that. You should look that we covered on INN News. Just look up, find the ones that have the chickpea hummus. Look for that.
Okay.
You know?
So he continues another article. Then Haaretz wrote that 2 weeks after Goher Rahabur, which is a British surgeon working in Gaza, arrived at Nasser Hospital on June 1st, he observed that the profile of wounds had changed. Instead of blast and detonation injuries, many more people began arriving with bullets in their body after Israeli troops opened fire at the starved crowd. Goher Rahabur was quoted as saying that the IDF fired at Palestinians at aid sites while they were trying to evade shooting, and also shot a pregnant woman in the stomach, telling the paper, quote, with some of them, you could see that they were shot while they lay on the ground, trying to evade being shot. Most of them were young men, but there was one woman in her early 30s who was 24 weeks pregnant. As thin as they are and as starved as they are, she might not even known it. The bullet went through the fetus. She survived, but needed a hysterectomy, so no more children. When we opened the abdomen, we could see the hand and the formed foot of the dead fetus. Oh, God. Just fucking monsters. Furthermore, the Palestinian political analyst Mohammed Shahada has found that the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Fund tells emaciated Gazans, come, we have food, then minutes later says, nah, don't come, we're closed. He then noted that as soon as people show up, the IDF empties their machine guns into the starving crowd and mows them down. In other words, the Gaza Humanitarian Fund posts to social media that they're open for food aid to lure starving Palestinians into aid sites, just to post minutes later that they're now closed to justify opening fire at the crowds of people once they arrive. 13 minutes, 17 minutes, 4 minutes. The vile U.S.-backed Israeli policy of starving the entire population of Gaza, then setting up a fake aid organization to murder them, is one of the most evil acts in human history, with no words in the English language to describe the utter depravity and barbarity of this policy. Fuck Israel. And fuck the U.S. And fuck UK. And all the other nations that are supporting and turning a blind eye. Shout out to the dissident, the 307.substack.com for that one. This is another one of my favorite people over on Substack, Alia Moro. She's just reminding people that Israel has bombed schools, hospitals, all masjids, entire cities, tents, ambulances, refugee camps, UN shelters, journalists, residential buildings. They bombed bakeries and marketplaces and water plants and universities and historical sites and aid centers. Well, they're terrorizing the people within their state, so by definition, they are a terrorist state.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was this little bit of theater and shenanigans that happened, and it was designed specifically for two reasons. Number one, to distract and to get people kind of allowing them to win the news cycle for a day and have people not talking about whatever else was going on. Trump decided this is a minute long, and I'll play the full minute because people are like, play the minute where he criticized Israel. He criticized Israel tepidly. He also criticized Iran in the same breath. Yeah, he said the F word. Oh my God, the president of the United States dropped an F-bomb publicly. First time I can remember that happening in my life, by the way.
What's your profanity?
Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before.
By the way, they do that every single time there's a ceasefire announced or some kind of a peace deal that might be in the works. They then go heavy on. They then Israel go heavy. Fires. So that's bullshit.
The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Wait a minute. First of all,
what's your profanity?
Iran has been fighting so long and so hard. What? Against who? Mm-hmm. Who are they at war with? Wait, what? Like, this entire nonsense, all right? They don't know what the fuck they're doing, Said a guy who has no idea what the fuck he's doing. Every accusation is a confession out of this guy. And out of Zionists by that means. All right? Fuck Trump. Fuck Netanyahu. They're all in on it together. Trump acting bad at Israel is so WWE.
By the way.
Amazing anybody is still taking this seriously. We're not. All right?
Yeah.
Choice is an illusion created by those with power to control those without. The Merovingian. Thanks, Merv. Appreciate that, Merv.
The Merovingian. What a nerd you are. What a nerd to know that.
Oh, are you kidding? He's one of my favorite characters. I fucking love that guy.
What a fucking nerd.
He sends a fucking piece of cake to a woman and makes her have an orgasm on the spot from the cake. How do you not love that guy?
What a fucking nerd you are.
Thank you.
Nerd alert.
Thank you.
A nerd.
Finally, to conclude our Fuck Israel segment, I wanted a little bit of a happier note on the end of it, which is that 2 Indie Media Award honorees are sitting right there together, which I think a lot of us were not sure would ever happen at one point. That's Minar Adley from Mint Press News, but that's Motaz Azaiza, the famous Gaza photographer who was part of UNRWA and was able to get out and has been touring the world speaking and speaking out on behalf of Gaza and on behalf of the Palestinian people. So shout out to them. I believe that the podcast is already out. She asked him, "How does your heart feel?" He replied, "It feels dead." He's a survivor, and my time with him reminded me that he's still processing his pain while the world expects so much from him, but that pain is also what drives him to continue to speak up for Gaza. He's experienced unimaginable pain and loss that most of us could never truly understand. I can't even imagine. How many family members? We also talked about what's happening in Gaza right now with Palestinians being shot at while trying to get aid. He told me horrific stories of starving, pregnant, and breastfeeding mothers that brought me to tears. Despite the pain, his smile lit up the entire room. His laugh warmed my heart. Motaz is 26 years old and grew up too quickly under war, a life he didn't choose. It was a full 360 moment. In 2021, Minar worked with Motaz to produce the Mint Press documentary, Gaza Fights Back. But they had never met in person until the other day. Every single day for a year after October 7th, she communicated with him to see if he was safe. He would respond, "I'm still alive, but I'm looking for water." Alhamdulillah, he's still alive. So, at least a couple of them managed to survive. And thank God for that, because he does brilliant work and we need him speaking out. Well, that concludes our Fuck Israel segment. So, hi everybody. I appreciate everybody hanging out that is over on Substack. Talking Wombat.
Look at what I sent you.
Okay, Dave DeCamp is my morning news source, says the Talking Wombat. I see you sent me...
Pull up the ones with the leaks. Look for the leaks.
Okay, well, I've got the ones with the leaks.
Yeah, you gotta pull those out.
Well,
yeah.
You gotta give me a minute here.
You're okay. You're okay. Take your time.
Yeah.
Take your time. We're in no rush. I just wanted to add this to the Fuck Israel segment because they related.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. 1, 2, no, the third one's here. Hit enter. Okay. Yeah. Well, that was the Squid Game one. I got you. Okay, so let me go back to this. This shit is serious.
Yeah.
All right. An amount of sugar entered Gaza today. My friend is telling me that his neighbor experienced hallucinations after eating that sugar, and she was transferred to Al-Aqsa Hospital. Mohammed Smiri. So
yeah, and scroll
one.
down.
Oh, there's Veronique. That's our friend of the show.
They're giving Gaza famine survivors sugar, not medicine, not electrolytes, sugar. right? They're hallucinating, seizing, confused. This isn't aid, it's neurochemical sabotage, right?
Yeah.
Starve a population, then flood their system with glucose. Watches refeeding syndrome kicks in, hallucinations, heart failure, death. They call it complications, medical violence hidden behind a candy wrapper. So
after famine,
that's how that goes.
Magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, and protein, and instead they're giving corn syrup and trauma.
Yeah.
Sugar is the cheapest weapon of pacification. Flood a starving body with it.
Flood a starving body with it.
Right.
And the brain short circuits, they call it a humanitarian response, but it's state-sponsored overdose. We used to say, let them eat cake. Now it's let them eat sugar, seize and die confused. Modern genocide is wrapped in aid package. Right? So, yeah, and this is the whole tea biscuit stuff too, right? Because it had sugar in it, they wouldn't allow it in. Right?
All right. So then you also sent this one. All right.
Right.
Where
so this is related to this story that was referenced in an article you brought up a minute ago, right? Where they talk about the killing field and what Israel's soldiers are like admitting to, right? But they talked about Operation Salted Fish, right? Which is them playing what they called the red light, green light game?
Red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. Yep.
Right. So that's literally this episode of Squid Game. That's this. That's what they're playing in Israel
with
and
the
killing
Palestinian
Palestinians
people right now. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
what
boy.
a fucking shit show we live in.
And so for talking about all that,
Anyway.
of course, we will not be monetized by YouTube, so you can't super chat us over there, where you can support our channel and support independent media, help us keep the lights on, pay for Restream and Canva where we make all our thumbnails and everything else. You do that over at Cash App, $, Indie News Network, over at ko-fi, kofi-com.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network. Website at indienewsnow.com. There's a Stripe link there. And then we got Substacks over at indiemediatoday.com where we're live right now. Shout out to everybody who's there. Okay. And INNnewsletter.com as well. So that is, that's that. All right. I have a quick one and then I want to get to Dissent and Bloom stuff about the electoral integrity. But very quickly, this is one that was in my lineup rundown early. I wasn't sure I wanted to bring it, but all right, let's do it. States fear that critical funding from FEMA may be drying up. Now, this is from ProPublica, which won a Pulitzer Prize this year for investigative journalism. Really good for independent outlets. They also got some government funding, I recall, but it's like grants and like legitimate stuff.
Sure.
You know, we covered after Hurricane Helene that FEMA was a problem, and then they had a new fiscal year rollover, and then we had the wildfires in California, and they didn't do very much for any of the California residents, and now we're hearing that states are fearing that FEMA's running out of money again. So again, this is Swanona, North Carolina. This is, I believe, Route 40, walking through the devastating flood damage from Hurricane Helene. Upheaval at the nation's top disaster agency is raising anxiety among state and local emergency managers and leaving major questions about the whereabouts of billions of dollars of federal money that it pays out to them. FEMA has still not opened applications for an enormous suite of grants, including ones that many states rely on to pay for basic emergency management operations. Some states pass on much of that money to their most rural, low-income counties to ensure that they have an emergency manager on the payroll. FEMA has blown through the mid-May statutory deadline to start the grants application process, according to the National Emergency Management Association, with no word about why or what that might indicate. The delay appears to have little precedent. My guess is that DOJ cut it. There's no transparency about why it's not happening, All right. And that's a guy who served as FEMA's chief of staff under former Presidents Obama and Biden. So he's gone, and it's partisan to a point. But FEMA's about helping people that have had the worst disaster happen to them. FEMA's system of grants is complex and multifaceted and helps communities prepare for and respond to everything from terrorist attacks to natural disasters. In April, the agency abruptly rescinded a grant program that county and local governments were expecting to help them reduce natural hazard risks moving forward. The clawback of money included hundreds of millions already pledged. They want to send that to Palantir. FEMA also quietly withdrew a notice for states to apply for $600 million in flood mitigation grants. Now, we're not going to cover that either. On top of that, on June 11th, dog killer Kristi Noem, our Homeland Security Secretary,
Who are these people?
Thank you, began requiring that she review all FEMA grants above $100,000. This is designed, and that could slow vast multi-billion grants apparatus to a crawl, current and former FEMA employees said. And again, by design. All right. Thank you. Of course. Thank you, Dissent in Bloom. Appreciate that, really. FEMA did not answer ProPublica's questions about the missed application deadline, what a surprise, or the impact of funding cuts and delays, instead responding with a statement from DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin that Noem is focused on bringing accountability to FEMA's spending by rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, working to ensure only grants that really help Americans in a time of need are approved. It's really designed to starve people out of the system and fuck them over so they don't have to pay out, like it's their own fucking money. The memo announcing the change arrived the day after President Trump said that he wants to begin dismantling FEMA at the close of hurricane season this fall. Because what could possibly go wrong next year? Hurricanes are just about to stop, I guess, right? All of this has left states, some of which rely on the federal government for the vast majority of their emergency management funding, in a difficult position. I would say so, yes. They cannot create fiat currency like the U.S. government can.
What do you mean? Just nuke the hurricanes. Just nuke them.
Okay.
Isn't that the plan? Isn't that the plan, to nuke the hurricanes?
Well, that's what he wanted to do
Wasn't
before.
that Trump's idea?
Or was it a tornado? While Trump has sharply criticized FEMA's performance delivering aid after disaster strike, he said about almost nothing about the future of its grant programs because he doesn't know anything about it. He needs to be told by the Heritage Foundation what he thinks about it. It's a huge concern, said Lynn Budd, president of the National Emergency Management Association and director of the Wyoming Office of Homeland Security, because we know that Wyoming is a hotbed of terrorist activity. That houses emergency management because nobody fucking lives there. The state agency gets more than 90% of its operating budget from federal funds, especially FEMA grants. The uncertainty makes it very difficult. Don't worry, their crypto buddies in Wyoming will have them. We'll make sure they're well taken care of. Wyoming is like the head. Minnesota! Oh, not Minnesota. Wyoming. Wyoming is like the head of. It's like the capital of crypto in the U.S.
He doesn't know where he's at. You know.
In North Carolina, a state hit hard by a recent natural disaster, federal grants make up 82% of its emergency management agency's budget. That seems like a lot. North Carolina EM leaders are pressing state lawmakers to provide it with funding that will sustain the agency and its core functions and cut its reliance on federal grant funding, an agency spokesperson said. How? Are they supposed to start generating profit somehow all of a sudden? How are they supposed to manufacture cash?
I bet you that's what they fucking want.
Manufacture cash.
Yeah, dude, make money.
A forced weaning off of federal dollars could have an outsized impact on North Carolina and the other states that pass on much of the FEMA grants to county and local agencies. Could? Many rural counties have modest tax bases. Dollar bill, y'all, and are already stretched thin. All right. In May, ProPublica published a story about detailing the horrors of Hurricane Helene's impact on one of these counties, Yancey. home to just 19,000 people, but it suffered the largest per capita loss of life and damage to property in the storm. My guess is that might be where the quartz mines are, too. Just a guess. Jeff Howell, its emergency manager, was operating with only a part-time employee and said that for years, he had been asking the county commission for more help. It wasn't until after the storm that the county commissioners agreed with the need. Way to close the barn door after the horse is already out. Thanks. Oh, they realized how big a job it is. And of course, he's since retired. So now you have a brain drain on all of that guy's knowledge for how many years of Yancey County. He's gone. You could have brought in replacements and trained and hired people, but they only had a part-time staffer. So who the fuck is running it now? People who have no idea what the hell's going on. But even large metropolitan
time for rational solutions.
Seriously, thank you. It is Sunday time for George. Even large metropolitan counties rely on the grants. The holdup in opening the grant applications concerns Robert Wyke Graham, Deputy Director of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Emergency Management. Charlotte's a pretty big city. They serve an area of 1.2 million people, and they're home to a nuclear power plant. The training and preparation FEMA grants that help the agency pay for are critical to keeping the community safe in the face of a nuclear fucking catastrophe. Yet, Graham has said that he's resorted to scouring social media posts and news reports for bits of clues about the grants because they don't tell him shit and the future of FEMA itself. We're all having to be like, hey, what have you heard? What do you know? What's going on? Nobody knows. Trump is on his second acting FEMA administrator in 5 months. That's an easy way to not have to get congressional approval, by the way. Just have an acting head. Keep rotating them around. Nobody knows what the fuck's going on. Right? And the coordinator...
He thinks the acting head is something much different.
Oh, yes. The director who coordinates national disaster response turned in his resignation letter on June 11th. Nothing to see here. More than a dozen senior leaders, including the agency's chief counsel, have left or been fired, along with an unknown mass of its full-time workers. Again, by design. Remember that when Trump came in, he basically handed people like their walking papers and said, you've got till September to resign. Every emergency manager I know is screaming, you're screwing the system up. We've all been calling for reform, but it's too much, too fast. Of course it is. It's, again, by design. Again, this is a much longer article. I'll put the link in the description. I'm not going to read through this whole thing because I do want to get to this really important series of articles about election integrity. So before we do that,
You can't handle the truth.
we could really use your help. And like Sean, the Accord Lord Miller just did right there, you can support with a co-fi.com/Indie News Network, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, PayPal.me/Indie News Network. At IndieNewsNow.com, there's a Keep the Media Free section, and also at Substack at INNNewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com, where we're live, but apparently Substack is being glitchy. So thanks a lot, Substack, for that. Really appreciate that.
Go to my website.
So I want to start with this section. Descent in Bloom is a Substack that I have been enjoying lately. I just recently found her through the Notes app, I guess. I don't even know exactly which article I found her from, but I'm glad I did.
Who also gave us a Ko-fi donation a minute ago that said, fuck Israel, fuck the mainstream media, and free Palestine.
Hell yeah.
Shout out.
Thank you.
Appreciate the donos.
And Sean also, $5. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Let me isolate on that. Nope, it's not there. Where'd it go?
Broke due to child graduating and his mother's company shut it down. Love. Fuck Israel.
Fuck Israel's right. There we go. There's the one from Descent in Bloom. Thank you, really. So she's here checking out the stream. Really appreciate her checking out How Do We Miss That in INN, supporting independent media. So I love that she did this. She posted like a nice intro post to kind of let people know, here's who's the person behind all of this. So she says, this is me. Dissent is my pseudonym, a pen name. Dissent in Bloom is my newsletter. I am the only one who writes this. Kind of like me, I'm indie with Indie Media Today.
Substack newsletter near you.
Only she'll go on camera and she's adorbs, and I'll show you her video in a minute. One thing that sets me apart from a lot of creators, she says, is that what I'm willing to talk about. Some people are scared to sound too radical or get called blue anon or whatever insult is trending this week. And she's independent, by the way. Labels are bad. Stay independent. You have a home here. But here's the thing. I might get emotional. I might get dramatic. But I don't make stuff up. If I say something, it's because I found proof. And if I'm speculating, I'll tell you I'm speculating. And if I'm wrong, I will correct myself. I will also promise you that you will never see me go full Alex, they're turning the frickin' frogs gay, Jones. Do you actually have that sound bit on your board? If not, we need to get that.
No. It'd be tough to find.
She says, I'm here to regurgitate this. I'm not here to regurgitate the same headlines you've already seen, then pretend I'm some rebel voice. I'll use mainstream sources, sure, but they're not my go-to. Thankfully for that. I file my FOIAs, dig into 20-year-old news articles, court records, and even property records, etc. My belief is that almost everyone has their angle, their agenda. The truth is usually hiding somewhere in between, and that's what I'm chasing, as are we all. She says, I also believe in doing what's right, including talking about the people being targeted by ICE and the Trump administration, as do we. This is something important to me. Most big media is owned by billionaires. That's why independent media matters. This platform, Substack, yeah, they're owned by them too. But I'm not. That's, again, dissent, and me too. And so far, they haven't shut me up. So I'm going to keep talking. And she says that I'd like to add that the background is edited in this picture because it looks cool, matches the newsletter, and hides her messy house, LOL. She's got videos talking on her page. Go to it. This is her. Was not expecting anyone to comment saying that she's AI generated. So that's Dissent. What's up, Dissent? I also, again, you recorded the 37-second video. Who are these people? Let's unmute that and go back.
Not a robot. Not AI generated. I am a real person. The background of my picture was edited because my house is a chaotic.
It's exactly what an AI would want us to hear.
Unfortunately, I am the one that spends all the time researching. But I'm going to use this as an excuse to promote the article I'm working on. It's going to be a big one, and I am very proud of the research that I've spent on this. Please keep an eye out this weekend. It will be coming out either Saturday or Sunday.
And she wasn't lying. So we're going to go through...
Sunday.
We're going to go through the first article, which is the main one, and then we're going to skim through the second article, which is a supporting article to this one, which is also really important. So, I don't know if you know, but I've always been kind of skeptical, and election integrity is one of the things that got me off the couch initially. In 2016, we watched Bernie get screwed. Convo Couch. And Convo Couch has done extensive work on following the election machines and following the electoral process to see whether the machines were manipulated. And there's been all kinds of reports, of course, about that. So Dissent in Bloom, very interestingly, has written this article about how, and I know that last fall, you and Colin on INN News covered a Politico article talking about how they knew that there was a vulnerability in the voting machines, but there was no time to patch or fix it. So they were just going forward without it.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that, so they just did.
Nobody got time.
All right. So Dissent says, yes, the voting machines were changed, and pro-V&V's Jack Cobb, his fingerprints are all over it. So we're going to get into who Jack Cobb is.
Where'd you find this?
And we're going to go back in time a little bit. She says, for more than 2 decades, 2 men in Huntsville, Alabama, have quietly held the keys to America's voting machines. First, there was Sean Southworth, who floated from lab to lab like a ghost in a white coat, certifying code he didn't test. using scripts he didn't write for companies that paid him not to ask questions. How convenient. When one lab got shut down, he surfaced at another. Like a bad penny, he kept turning up. The name on the door changed, he didn't. From Wiley Labs to Nichols Research to Cynet to Metamore to Cyber Inc. and eventually back to Wiley. Then came Jack Cobb, real name Ryan Jackson Cobb, Southworth's quiet shadow, and apparently wallet. Today, Cobb runs Pro V&V, one of just 2 private labs entrusted to decide whether the machines used in U.S. elections are secure, reliable, and accurate. That's remarkable! 2 private labs in the entire country. His lab signs off on critical software updates. His word alone determines whether changes are too small to test or too dangerous to ignore. Whether the voting machines are secure and trustworthy, quote unquote, or just signed off by someone who says they are. And that's him, by the way.
By the way,
go ahead.
Huntsville is 26 miles from Decatur. You know what happens in Decatur?
I don't want to know what happens in Decatur.
Well, there's 2 accents that exist in Decatur. This one and Schnell sprechen Sie Deutsch, ja. Right? That's the only 2 things that are in Decatur.
Germans?
For very particular reasons. That is correct.
As in rocket scientists?
Those would be the ones. That is correct.
So apparently,
Werner von Braun and the like.
Yes.
Just saying.
Wrote another article on June 7th, and it made national headlines. Cobb was questioned and told Newsweek that most of these articles are completely made up. Then he wrote off the changes as insignificant. Well, she brought the receipts, so no, Jack, they're not. Because back in the early 2000s, according to official EAC documents following his leave, Cobb was employed as project manager at Cyber Inc., a now defunct voting system testing lab that lost its federal accreditation for doing exactly what he appears to be doing right now. God, they never change their stripes, do they? In fact, during federal audits, Cyber was cited multiple times for lacking documentation, ignoring quality standards, and failing to test for basic tampering vulnerabilities. Cobb was the one managing those projects. How convenient. And when the feds finally shut Cyber down, Cobb didn't lose access. He leveled up, migrating to another lab alongside practice director Sean Southworth, then founding his own, all whilst conveniently omitting his history with cyber from the public. This is an oversight.
They also don't know how to spell cyber.
Well, I think it's done on purpose. It's muscle memory. Cobb didn't just learn from Southworth. He inherited the infrastructure of secrecy along with a federal stamp of legitimacy. And in the last 20 years, no one has stopped him. So we go back to Cyber Inc. To understand how he got away with it, you have to go back to where he learned it. Back to Cyber Inc., the lab that taught him how to pass broken machines, skip security checks, and then call it certified, quote unquote. In 2006, federal auditors showed up unannounced to peek behind Cyber's curtain after tons of concerning reports and public outcry. And what they found wasn't the lab, it was a stage play. Smoke, mirrors, and paperwork dressed up as science. Not only was critical documentation missing, the lab had no standardized testing methods at all. Each evaluation was a snowflake, custom, vendor-fed, and barely reviewed. Their so-called quality assurance process was just a checklist that someone probably scribbled during lunch. Right? But the most damning part, they let the people who made the damn systems write the script. Literally. According to EAC documents, not only were they using client-provided testing scripts, Cyber didn't even have a core test script of their own to compare side by side with the one being provided from the vendors. So, instead of designing and conducting independent scientific tests, Cyber used whatever test plans the voting machine and system manufacturers, aka vendors, handed them. Diebold, ES&S, Sequoia, the companies that stood to profit from passing certification, were the ones choosing how they'd be tested.
Well, Sequoia more white might have to make another appearance.
Yeah, maybe. And Sean Southworth, who was Cyber's practice director at the time, was the man making it happen. The EAC came down so hard that they failed to notice the man right beneath him, Jack Cobb, project manager. Interesting, because these are the roles that they worked hand in hand together. Managers assign projects cost, performance. So you didn't ding the guy who was responsible for performance? So again, let's take a step back. We all know that based off official documentation from Cyber, that at some point between 2004 and 2007, Jack Cobb was project manager at their voting system testing lab. The job that put him at the helm of certifying the very machines that count our votes in American elections. We also know that, according to Cyber, Cobb was in charge of managing test projects from start to finish, including, which he didn't do any of, drafting test plans and scripts. Again, he didn't. Overseeing staff. I don't know what he did there. Maintaining timelines for, I guess, getting it from the election companies. And communicating directly with the voting machine vendors themselves, such as, again, Diebold, ES&S, and Sequoia, some of their biggest customers. Smart Tech is another one. And, of course, Dominion is the other big election company. So he didn't just run the logistics. He also ran the lab where his boss, practice director Sean Southworth, was away. So when the cat's away, the mice play. He acts as the practice director in the absence of the director, is in the very job description provided by Cyber to the EAC. So how is this guy also not held responsible? There's no denying that when it came to accountability, Cobb was at the top of the food chain, making him not just negligent, but likely knowingly complicit in certifying voting systems that had not been properly or lawfully tested. When the federal government revoked Cyber's ability to certify voting machines in 2007 because of this, you might expect the people responsible to face consequences, but of course, they didn't. They failed upwards. Instead, they moved across town to Wiley Laboratories, yet another voting machine testing lab tucked away in the same quiet corners of Huntsville, Alabama. Alabama, as you like to say.
Alabama.
I know.
Correct.
For Southworth, this wasn't a reinvention, all right, since it was a ritual. Since the 90s, he'd bounced from election lab to election lab, Nichols Research, Cynet, Metamore, Cyber, getting accountability like a snake sheds skin. The only difference now was this time he brought someone with him, someone with a bunch of money. Jack Cobb, the man who would go on to found Pro V&V, again, one of just two labs in the nation that certifies the voting machines used in the U.S. in the 2016 election, in the 2020 election, in the 2024 election, and even today. Were there any anomalies in those elections? I don't.
Survey says.
Ding, ding, ding. And, well, ultimately, Southworth appears to have completely disappeared off the radar, which is also suspect as fuck. Cobb was ready to jump in. In 2011, just 4 years after the collapse of Cyber, Cobb somehow founded his own lab, which is again Pro V&V. Same city, same blueprint. New man at the top. What could possibly go wrong? By 2015, Pro V&V had achieved full accreditation from the EAC. How? They never looked. There was no in-depth review of Cobb's past, no accountability for his role at Cyber, or any accountability for participating in Cyber's fracturing of the foundation of election integrity for money. Nope. Just a rubber stamp and a fresh start. And just like that, he went from a failed project manager to federal gatekeeper. His lab, private, vendor-funded, and entirely insulated from public records laws, was suddenly the authority on what counted as a secure voting system in the United States. Holy shit, that's insane. But what does that actually mean? It means that when voting machine vendors like ES&S, Dominion, or Unison want to update or change their product, they don't go to the government. They go to Jack Cobb. Pro V&V looks at those changes and decides whether they're significant, whether they require new testing, or whether they can be rubber stamped as de minimis changes. That's a regulatory term meaning too minor to matter. Minor hardware tweaks, harmless, no red flags, nothing to see here. Pro V&V ultimately decides if a submitted change meets the de minimis criteria before submitting it to the EAC. The approvals always come from Cobb himself or Wendy Owens, the program director there. That's her. De minimis rules explicitly state that they are not supposed to cover software changes, firmware changes, or anything that changes system functionality, behavior, reliability, or performance. So, no firmware, software, or functionality changes, period. Insane. So why is Pro V&V, one of only 2 labs in the country trusted to certify U.S. systems, voting systems, slapping that label on software changes and quietly sending them up the chain? And worse, why is the EAC signing off on it without objection? Well, because they're all bought off all along the chain, and nobody wants to say anything or speak out. Because God forbid anybody knows that our system is completely a sham. He says, 2 recent examples of this can be found in the ECO's approved just a few months before the 2024 election, buried in plain sight. In ECO, this is an update, 1188, ES&S and Pro V&V quietly removed a critical integrity check for the vote reporting system. The configuration.ini file, if you're a programmer, you know what that is, which controls how vote totals are generated and reported, was reclassified so the system no longer checks to make sure that it's running the certified and approved software. What could go wrong? This could cause a difference in how ballots are counted by the machines. Again, by design. ECO 1167, this other change from ES&S and Pro V&V, tells the voting system to stop and alert when it's running different election software than what was originally approved. In the summary, it sounds like a cleanup, but it comes with implications. In plain terms, this means the machine will no longer throw off a warning that if a file is altered, intentionally or not, right? So that's not good. It used to be that if any changes happened, someone would get an alert somewhere, hey, this file's been changed. Now it's not. These software changes were both signed off on as de minimis by Pro V&V and EAC officials. They are not the only examples, not by far. They're just 2 of the recent and critical ones worth telling you about. I highly, highly recommend you visit the EAC website and see more for yourself. The private corporations who own the machines, the very machines that the federal government pays them for with our tax dollars, really saw this and decided that instead of putting the time, effort, or money into fixing the errors in the software, they'd simply remove the important election tampering safeguards that were put there in the first place to prevent election fraud. Nobody's going to try to do that. So I want you to really reflect on the fact that not only did Pro V&V approve these changes to software to prevent election fraud, they also decided that they were minor, and then they sent them to both as de minimis to the EAC. So talking out of both sides of their mouth. The EAC then looked at both of these and somehow agreed and approved it because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about either. Some federal officials saw these and went, oh yeah, that's fine, before approving election fraud safeguards. It's remarkable. Yes, there might have been a typo in there. It's all good. This is a great article. So now we have 2 less election fraud safeguards quietly dismantled without testing, explanation, or oversight. But I'd wager a bet that this is likely the first you're hearing of it. Certainly was the first I heard of it because I don't read the EAC website. It's like taking the batteries out of your smoke detector because you didn't like the beeping. Easier? Sure. Safer? Absolutely not. The more you teach a system to stay quiet, the less likely it is to speak up when something really is wrong. So, who are the officials approving?
American bullshit.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Who are the federal officials?
Your vote counts.
What else?
That was it.
Santa Claus is real. That was
Just
another
your
one.
vote counts.
Oh, okay. There was another
I
one.
think
in
it's
there.
the press is free.
The press is, there you go. I knew there was another one.
Yeah.
The majority of the Pro-V&V's election machine change requests that were approved from EAC officials were sent from their director, Wendy Owens. These were signed off as de minimis, despite not meeting criteria, by none other than EAC official Michael L. Walker. Meet Michael Walker. So you're going to see this a lot. Michael Walker and Wendy Owens. I don't know if they're dating. Maybe they're banging. I don't know. Let me go back to this. My biggest concern here is that there's a program director employed at Pro-V&V named Michael Walker. This individual also spoke on behalf of Pro-V&V at the EAC at one point. Now, there's no way for dissent to verify at this moment through the EAC or Pro-V&V whether the Michael Walker listed as approving these election software changes on behalf of the EAC is the same one who's employed at Pro-V&V. And that's a problem. I can't say for sure they're the same person, but I can't say for sure that they're not. Why are individuals with such critical roles in our election infrastructure allowed to remain anonymous to the public? There's no bio, no photo, no professional record, nothing. So she's filing a FOIA request to obtain their credentials and affiliations, but let's be honest, I shouldn't have to do that just to find out who's signing off on changes to the machines that count our fucking votes. There's also no guarantee they'll give her the information either because it's a private corporation. And here's the kicker. Like she says, Pro-V&V is a private company. They operate in the shadows while wielding the authority to approve or deny updates to national voting systems. And I don't trust ES&S and Dominion as far as I can throw them to begin with. They are effectively the gatekeepers of our elections, and yet they answer to no one. And since they're a private for-profit company, they're not subject to public records laws. So FOIA requests don't work here. Therein lies the issue with the privatization of essential government services, including our own elections. Keep corporations out of the damn government. All right?
Capitalism.
Yes. Well, when the government and the corporations are in bed together, the secrecy is the point, but it also is another word, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
We've talked about that quite a bit. This private corporation ultimately has the power to greenlight changes that affect how your vote is cast, counted, or reported. And they operate in the shadows. The EAC polishes it to make it seem like they're really making sure these changes are submitted or by these private for-profit labs are on the up and up.
You can't polish
a turd. But honestly, it's bullshit. The way that it actually works is a corporation pays Jack Cobb to test and approve a change to their voting machines or systems. Once he approves it, it goes to the EAC, and then once they sign off, the company can make the change. Sounds nice. Even like they're making sure things are official, right? That is until you find out that the EAC does not conduct its own technical review of change requests at all, whether de minimis or full modifications. They rely only on what private labs like Pro-V&V says. How convenient. The EAC receives the paperwork and makes a decision based solely on what the lab provides. For de minimis, they just confirm the lab's provided summary of the change, that if the change fits the policy definition, and anything bigger, they approve it if the lab did the testing, and says it passed. They take their word for it. So what's the truth about EAC approvals? There's no peer review. They don't actually test and verify the findings on the equipment. Nobody is checking their work, and there's no requirement to prove that the change wouldn't affect election outcomes. And they don't investigate changes unless something goes wrong, which is what happened with cyber. And remember, they just disabled the code to alert them when something goes wrong. The entire approval process for these serious machine updates takes place in a black box by design. The election machine companies propose, labs paid by those companies endorse, and a single EAC official signs off. The voting machine is changed without you ever knowing. The public sees nothing while it's happening. Most people never know they do. We get a brief summary in the form of an ECO released after the fact on the EAC's website. There's never sports. It's in the game. There's never an announcement. Most people don't even know about them. Want to know whether a system was tested after a software change? Good luck. This is what you see. You'll then need to cross-reference internal change logs with multi-page PDFs labeled things like test plan for addendum for ES&S EVS 5.2.0.3 revision 2 final, and know them to marry that up. And that's even if it's posted. Love that corporate bureaucracy. So in the end, here's what we know for now. 2 decades in, and the same ghosts are still running the show. Only now they've got federal stamps and private funding. The watchdogs are asleep. The guards are paid by the people trying to get past the gate. Sounds a lot like the FDA, honestly. We're told our elections are secure because someone at a privately owned lab said so, based on paperwork you can't see, tested with tools you can't question, and approved by a federal agency that doesn't verify any of it. And this is just the surface. There's far more to Jack Cobb's story than one defunct lab and a rubber-stamped resume. In fact, the evidence I didn't even get to in this piece includes internal emails, vendor correspondences, and contracts that pull back the curtain even further on how this system operates in the shadows. Cobb's name pops up in procurement records repeatedly, in state-level certification documentation, in conflicts of interest no one's ever questioned, contracts that, as far as I can find, no journalist has ever published, evidence of a revolving door between labs and clients, and a pipeline of decisions with zero transparency. So stay tuned. Jack Cobb's life is about to get fucking miserable, because Cobb may have inherited the keys to America's voting machines, but we've got more receipts. This lady is not done yet. And shout out to her, man. She's fucking killing it. All right. And again, just like we don't value for value system, she doesn't put her work behind a paywall. All right. So support independent journalism.
Proof, timeline, screenshots, everything.
Now, this was published in a series of articles. I want to show you the next one, and we may go into it next week. But we're getting close to boats. So she sends a little message trolling, "Hey, Jack, you tried to discredit my last article. Told Newsweek it was completely made up. You never actually said what was exactly wrong. You just hoped no one would look further, and that was a mistake, as you just saw right there. But even worse, she publishes this other companion article about 6705 Odyssey Drive in Alabama, and where your vote is certified and missiles are built. You know, you said something about Huntsville, Alabama, and rocketry. And very interestingly, she exposed the Huntsville facility linking voting machine certification to the military industrial complex. So again, I encourage everybody, go read this article. I just want to show you, this was my quote that I published from it. She says, when Dynetics was occupying part of that facility, which, by the way, he also owns the building. This guy, Jack Cobb, he doesn't just work there. He owns this fucking building. All right. And he's subleasing out parts of it. And there's a sign on the front of the door. Oh, look at this. All these defense contractors, Leidos, SAIC Huntsville, Strong, Niantic. There are a bunch of, okay, it's within walking distance of SAIC. If Jack wanted to go visit his old friend, Sean Southworth, it wouldn't take but a hop, skip, and a jump. All right. Here's the building that says Dynetics, a Leidos company. Right. So I don't even know if they still rent that, but he's using that sign to at least hide it. But oh my goodness, like, why would one of the two labs that certifies voting machines be located in an industrial park that houses some of the largest defense contractors in the country, which they consider to be like the Silicon Valley of defense contractors? Huh. Nothing to see here. DissentInBloom.substack.com. Maybe we'll read this one next week. Really appreciate this article that she did publish about the machines and about the background. And holy crap, Pro V&V is one of these organizations that is, again, certifying our machines. So DissentInBloom.substack.com. Go check that out. All right. I'm running a little long, and I know we need to get to boats. Uncensored boats smashing into other boats. Again, support independent media. Ways to do that. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com at our website. And at the Substacks at INNNewsletter.com and at IndieMediaToday.com. All right. I've got a quick lightning round that I wanted to run through real quick. All right. First, lightning round. Keith McHenry shared this. Miami just canceled its November election and pushed it back to 2026 by 1 year. No public vote, just canceled. As a result, term-limited officials like Mayor Suarez and Joe Carollo get to stick around an extra year. That's not democracy, it's a power grab. And the scary thing is the precedent. If one city can delay elections for participation, quote unquote, what's to stop others from doing it to silence opposition? Scary. All right. So that's that one.
Participation awards?
Yes. Next. I subscribe to inequality.org. That's a newsletter and a website. This came in my email inbox. I wanted to shout out and give a mention. 100 rural hospitals in the past 5 years have stopped delivering babies because their business line ranks it among the least profitable. So no maternity wards rurally. You've got to go to a larger city to give birth. Capitalism. As Congress debates massive Medicaid cuts, more than 700 rural hospitals face the risk of complete closure. That's great. So, hope you're having babies soon.
Yeah. And a Ferengi without profit.
It's no Ferengi at all.
Now, we also, speaking of bribery and corruption, this certainly looks pretty naked. First, Toyota donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration. Then, Trump's Consumer Financial Protection Bureau said they didn't have to pay a $40 million consumer in refunds anymore. That alone pays itself off. And now Trump's DOJ just closed this investigation into allegations of Toyota bribery. Our government is up for sale. That's via Public Citizen. Okay. So we've got that.
And now for something completely different.
Yep. What happened here? Let's refresh. F5.
And now for something completely different.
Now, this is a really interesting story. So I had this story in my notes to bring for tonight. And then I Googled it, or I looked it up. I just did a search. And it turns out it was a complete hoax. So I'm bringing it to show that people can get fooled by narratives and tweets, and nonsense is pushed and never followed up on and corrected. So what had happened was, I saw this tweet that said the National Archives at College Park is about to go dark. Effective July 7th, it's becoming a restricted access federal facility, meaning everyday Americans will no longer have public access to the very records that hold our government accountable. This is where receipts live, declassified files, presidential documents, historical memos, and now they're walling it off behind a vague legitimate business needs standard. Well, not so fast, my friend.
Receipts, proof,
No.
timeline, screenshots, everything.
Well, apparently that post was pulled down like a day later. Such a notice briefly appeared on the website and then planned changes in security protocol. Later, however, the account on X said that the facility would remain open to the general public and that the organization's senior advisor said the planned changes were canceled before they took effect. Apparently, somebody leaked this out. They may have tried to leak this out or tried to execute it. Somebody leaked it out and they had to pull it back. All right. And a bunch of people, they referenced this tweet showing that the pink notice did above seemed to indeed to appear on the National Archives website in the section detailing access, but the next day it was gone. So they're not shutting down the National Archives website. So if you hear anybody say that, that is misinformation. And even I fell for it at one point. All right.
Malinformation, even.
Now, this one I did want to spend a couple of minutes on. Fiorella and Vanessa Beeley talked about this on their new podcast as well, which you can find over on Fiorella's Substack, fiorellaisabel.substack.com. My advice here is to stay away from marches, major cities on July 4th. All right. Now, the reason why I'm not telling anyone what to do, but my family and I won't be there, I can tell you for sure. The timing of another No Kings planned rally feels like coincidentally perfect symmetry with this detailed exercise run last April. What do I mean? Last April, there was a tabletop exercise run by the National Blueprint for Biodefense, which is apparently an NGO that has government funding and has some pretty heavy-duty players on it. They ran a tabletop exercise, and anyone who's in the conspiracy theory world will know that tabletop exercises
Warhammer or
typically are masks for what they plan to happen and game out how they want a response to something to happen. All right. This one was about
the dice. Did you roll the dice?
a literal biological. This was about a literal biological thing. So this was a more than 160-page report that was generated. And what was this generated about? The following hypothetical opening remarks by the chair of a congressional joint inquiry provide context for this report by portraying a biological attack sufficient to cause the catastrophic consequences warned of by the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense. That's this study. The scenario describes how a biological agent could target humans and animals, how it could emerge, some of the key interagency capabilities required to address it and the agent and its impacts, and the consequences of failure. And when is this supposed to happen? July 4th, 2025. Theoretically, again, this study happened in April of 2024. So they were projecting that a year out, there would be some mass casualty event that killed at least 280,000 Americans and injured another 400,000, and also killed 200,000 pets and 800,000 animals sickened. They're talking about another COVID or another biological type of attack, potentially. Now, my feeling is that you don't use, now this, by the way, is the full report. I'm going to link this in the description. It's 177 pages. They don't put together a 177-page report, full commission. By the way, the commissioner is none other than former Senator Joe Lieberman, who was the running mate for Al Gore in the 2020 election. Tom Ridge, who was the Homeland Security Secretary during 9/11. Donna Shalala, Health and Human Services during 9/11. Do we see some kind of a pattern developing here? People who had been involved with national response during a national crisis.
9/11.
As I said, the amount of time, resources, and planning around a quote-unquote fictitious event in the future suggests that they're expecting such an event. It's predictive programming, like Event 201 ahead of COVID, like the laptop exercise that the government ran with social media companies ahead of the 2020 election. All right, that prepared them. Right. And I link to the original reporting for Event 201, as well as this report here. All right. Now, somebody said the more that I look into this NGO, the shadier they get. They receive grants from Open Philanthropy, which seems like an even bigger red flag than the name would suggest.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
Right? Open Philanthropy recommended a grant of over $5 million over 2 years to the Vaccine Formulation Institute to support the clinical development of novel open access adjuvants. Adjuvants are key components added to vaccines that enhance the body's immune response. Yeah, this is not good stuff. I asked if there was any follow-up, but there hadn't been. Also, somebody else, Sword of Truth, says, I've posted about this too. Could be nothing, could be something. They launch AI.gov on July 4th as well. I'm sure it's no coincidence that it's on Independence Day.
Oh, we're going to have the Jewish space lasers hit the White House.
Right.
You know?
So July 4th.
Going to be like in the movie Independence Day with Will Smith.
Why do they pull all these resources together for a study if nothing's going to happen? It's an awful lot to be invested in. All right. Like I said, I mentioned this earlier, the one about FEMA. So check that out. And then finally, we want to get to everybody's GoFundMes and supporting independent media. So, Shanda, again, huge update. Terry the Tumor is dead. So, smartest man in the room says, no more tumor. Great news.
It's not a tumor.
Not anymore.
Not a tumor.
Not anymore. So, most recent update is here. All right. Again, he's the one showing me imagery inside the lung and body. She still has pain and arthritis, but that's arthritis and that's not cancer. That's a whole better thing. All right. So support Shanda. Throw her a couple of bucks on her GoFundMe. We'll put that in the description on the Substack. Also, Andrew Zygmunt Smith, who, by the way, had a birthday this weekend. Happy birthday, Andrew. His daughter, Anna Marie, needs some help, and they can use some money fighting her brain tumors as well. They went to Cincinnati and did 6 weeks of intensive therapy. She's home now, and anything you can do there. Our brother Oz the Boomer also fighting a little on the cancer side. God damn it, fuck cancer. He could use some help on his Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Oz the Boomer, all one word. You can do that. Hook him up with a couple of bucks. And then again, we've got Aspen Benson. That's Halo's daughter. Halo, one of the member of our community, Assange activist, still sending postcards to us for Pardon Assange to send out to Congress people, self-addressed and stamped. All right. Her daughter is facing devastating charges after a trip gone wrong. We talked about that last week. They need to raise over $30,000 for her defense. How they doing so far? They haven't even gotten to 1,000 yet. So they've got a long way to go. Anything anyone can do to help, please. Aspen Benson. Look it up over on GoFundMe. Help Aspen fight unjust charges. Again, we'll have that link. Finally, we got Indie News Now. That's the website that we put together to showcase independent media, corporate-free independent media. By the way, also, Gordon Dimmack started a new website. Gordon Dimmack's website is included on IndieNewsNow.com. All right, but GordonDimmack.com, he launched a brand new version of his WordPress site, and he shared that we're now including his posts in IndieNewsNow.com, which is really cool. Appreciate Gordon, love him to death. Another Indie Media Award honoree, class of 2023. One of the best of the best. Appreciate Gordon. All right. Oh, look at that. There's Descent in Bloom. She's over on TikTok, too, so you can follow her over there. All right. Next, that's Gordon's site. Then we've got our merch store, finally, and then we can get to boats. All right. We've got the merch store, so you can check that out. That's buy my merch, little bitch. Indie News Order, Indie News Shop. .itemorder.com.
Buy my merch right quick. Look
out my shirt, little bitch. Go to my website.
That's, yeah, indienewsnow.com. That's my website. All right. And that's I just dropped the link in the chat for the new shop. So we're going to go to boats real quick. But before you do, again, if you can't pick up a shirt, hook us up with a couple of bucks. Cash App, $ Indie News Network, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network.
Money, boy.
PayPal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com, that's where we just were. INNNewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com over on Substack. Fund the media you want to see. Support independent media. Man, I'm wiped, but I'm ready to go over to Boats Smashing Out of the Boats. For those who don't know, that's our React show. That's going to be next. It's going to be also at INNNewsletter.com. It's not going to be at the same Substack. We're switching Substacks over to the network one. And we're not going to be on YouTube. So you need to get to rumble.com/C/INN8TheOcho. We're doing this over on the Ocho, over on that channel over there. I love you all. Thank you so much. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Have a good night, everybody. Love you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Felicia.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry. My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to me, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who is